It seems like we have some new folks here too. Jason gave some meditation instructions. So before I start the bulk of my talk, I want to just say a couple of words about the chanting that we just did. Speaking from my own personal experience, I've been with the Quantum School of Zen for over 40 years. And I've been doing these same chants for over 40 years. Because we are online and there are many people coming from all over, and many of you aren't steeped in our Quantum School of Zen practice, we've chosen a pretty simple chant to do on Wednesday night. We're just doing the repetition of the mantra, Quan Seum Bosal. Jason pointed out, Quan Seum Bosal, literally, it's the name of the Bodhisattva of compassion. Bosal means Bodhisattva. So Quan Seum is the name of the Bodhisattva of compassion. The words Quan Seum literally translate hearing the cries of the world. The Bodhisattva, the archetype, the being who hears the cries of the world. But that's meaning of the chant that we chant. Chanting is not about meaning. Chanting is experiential. And chanting is something I know for myself. When I first started practicing Zen, I thought meditation was the true practice. Chanting was some kind of thing we do, and I think I associated it with religion and form, and it was just something to be done because all religions do this kind of thing. And when I entered into Buddhism, I really didn't think of Buddhism much as a religion. For me, it's a practice and a way of life. And quite honestly, it still remains that way. There are religious aspects to practice, but for me, it's more of a life path. It's a direction. It's a way of living, and it's also a way of going deeply into myself to live in a different way. I'll get more into that in a little bit. But chanting, actually, what I have discovered, the beauty of chanting is that it's not rational. It doesn't make sense. I think music, sound, song, it hits us on a level below our rational mind. And our rational thinking mind is the thing that structures all of our perceptions. It's the way we understand. And in Zen practice, we're looking to soften that structure of understanding to allow for spontaneity, to allow for mystery, to allow for something new to arise. And we're in sitting meditation, we're working with thoughts, we're aware, we're feelings. In chanting, we're only doing it. The point of chanting is the experience of chanting. It's different than singing in that we're not singing a song. We're chanting something that we do over and over again. I think one way you can define practice is something that involves repetition. We do it over and over and over again. So for close to 50 years, I've been sitting meditation. No two sitting meditation periods are the same. It's a very important point. No two moments in our life are the same. But our consciousness works in a kind of approximation and using the past to understand the present. So we assume things to be the same so we can understand them. But in truth, no two moments are the same. And as I said, no two meditation periods are the same. The experience is always different. So maybe you have family or friends that you've been with or known for quite a long time. It's very easy to categorize them, to put them in a box. But actually, your friend is never the same as they were the last time you saw them. Each moment is unique. Each moment gives rise to this world and to truth and to a way of life. But we try to make it continuous when it's now, 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 now. And chanting gets underneath all of that conscious understanding. And in a sense, and this is just metaphor, but from below, it starts to loosen the structure, make us more flexible, less rigid. In some ways, you can say the journey in practice is going from a rigid, self-centered point of view and moving towards an open, flexible, and focus more on including the whole rather than narrow and self-centered. And chanting, it like gets underneath the surface and starts to move things around a little bit outside of our awareness, outside of our consciousness. So for those of you who are new, some of the Zen practices and techniques may seem strange. And I know for myself, it took me years and years. I say 8 years, and I don't remember anymore where I got that number from. But it took me that long to appreciate the practice of chanting, to appreciate the not knowing that chanting puts me in. And just experientially this evening, just even the rigorous effort it takes to stay with that phrase, Kwansen Boso, Kwansen Boso, Kwansen Boso, Kwansen Boso, over and over and over again. I often can notice my mind wondering, when will this end? That's part of practice. If you think about it, when will this end? We're actually hastening our own death. Just in that phrase, when will this end? This will end, something else will happen. We're always pushing ourselves forward. And our practice is trying to be a kind of help, if you will, to let us stay here. Maybe to savor the moment a little bit longer than we're used to be able to stay present without always rushing forward. So I want to read a couple of things to shape my talk a little bit. A lot of you, one of the things that's happened since we're now online, people come to these meetings from all over the world. So in some ways, this talk is inspired somewhat by the election we've just had in the United States and the aftermath, but also the prelude. But I hope not to talk politics at all. This is about how our minds hold things and create things. So I want to read 2 short passages. The first is a poem by Zen Master Bon Soeng. Zen Master Bon Soeng is my great-grand teacher. So he dates back to the early 20th century. He lived and taught in Korea is where he lived, and he lived and taught throughout the occupation of Korea by Japan. So it was a very difficult time in Korea. There was a lot of struggle, a lot of poverty, a lot of hunger. I don't know exactly when this poem was written, so I don't know historically where it fits in that time pre-World War II. But this happens to be a poem for Buddha's birthday. Buddha's birthday in the West, we celebrate on April 8th. In Asia, it's the 8th day of the 4th month of the year, so it's likely to be later in the year. But this is a poem for Buddha's birthday by Zen Master Bon Soeng. Very tired, so the dream is very complicated. This morning, a bird gave a Dharma speech to me. Today is Tiger Year's Buddha's birthday. 100 grasses understand themselves, yellow and red. I'll read that one more time. Very tired, so the dream is very complicated. This morning, a bird gave a Dharma speech to me. Today is Tiger Year's Buddha's birthday. 100 grasses understand themselves, yellow and red. Actually, to me, well, all of the lines are important. The first line speaks very strongly to me. Very tired, so the dream is very complicated. The dream is that Bon Soeng is referring to is not necessarily the dream that you had last night. In fact, specifically, it's not that. It's the dream that we dream up in our understanding and creation of the world. We believe on some level that the world is the way we perceive it. In fact, the world, our whole perceptual experience is mitigated by our minds. So let me read you one other short piece to fit into this. And this comes from a translation of our morning bell chant that we chant every morning at the Zen centers and in temples all over, certainly in Korea and all over the world. And this is, okay, I'll just read this. Homage to the great wide Buddha, the Huayan Sutra. The first verse, if you wish to understand thoroughly all Buddhas, past, present, and future, you should view the nature of the universe as created by mind alone. If you wish to understand thoroughly all Buddhas, past, present, and future, you should view the nature of the universe as created by mind alone. If you want to see through and perceive this dream, you need to remember that everything is created by mind. Everything in our experience is mitigated by mind. In this way, I make you and you make me. I think I'm looking at you and perceiving you and what you do as you, but everything is mitigated through my mind. I make good and bad. I make judgments. I create reality. It's a very fundamental point. Until we start investigating our experience, this might sound like a way out fantasy. But with the guiding of the teaching and the depth and the effort of our practice, we start to look, what is this dream? What is this life? What is this thing that I call me? Who are you? And how are you separate from me? This we call inquiry practice. This is the basis of Kangan practice. It's the basis of the basic, sorry, I'm saying three things at once. Jason gave us instructions tonight on meditation. He said, go down into your lower abdomen. Slowly, with diaphragmatic breathing, breathing in, your belly expands. Breathing out, your belly falls. And then he said, say the phrase, clear mind, clear mind, clear mind, don't know. That phrase literally raises the question, what am I? We practice with great doubt, with curiosity and wonder. We challenge our assumptions. We challenge our beliefs. We're curious. How do I know that? You ever get that experience when you say something to somebody very definitively? This might be an especially male thing, but you say something like with full belief, and then somebody says, really? How do you know that? And then you stop for a second and think, I don't know. I've told this story before, that I have this experience when I was a child. There were a lot of ladybugs around. And I had to have been 4, 5, 6 years old. Somebody told me that you knew the age of a ladybug by the amount of spots on its back. So if it had 3 or 4 spots, it meant it was 3 or 4 years old. And that was just truth to me. And there was a time in my 30s that I was telling somebody, oh yeah, you know the age of the ladybug by how many spots it has on its back. And I heard myself and I said, what? How do I know that? Where does that come from? And it was a beautiful moment, really. Most of us don't like those moments because we think the most important thing is to be right. That's part of our dream. See, our dream is maintaining a system where I'm okay. And so we don't like for others to see that we really don't know what we're talking about. We don't like to get feedback from others that things are not as sure as we think they are. But for a practitioner of Zen, that's like an enlightenment experience. Your whole structure for one moment falls away. If I made this story up or I believed something that has no basis in fact, what else do I believe that is made up? And just to tangentially touch it, in the political world, we all believe we're right. We feel so deeply and passionately our beliefs. But as Zen practitioners, we also have to remember that we don't know everything. It's really not possible that out of the 7 billion people in this world, I'm the one who's right. It's just not possible. But on some level, we believe that. We act as if that's so. So whenever you hear something mentioned in Zen or in Buddhism about the dream, it's really the dream that we conjure up as our belief in what the universe actually is. So Mangang says here, very tired, so the dream is very complicated. And what I like about this line, it shows you directly, when I'm tired, that creates a whole world view that I create. I'm tired. For me, I'm tired. I get a little grumpy. Maybe I get a little bit more judgmental. Maybe I get a little bit more irritable. Maybe I give up more quickly than I usually would. Whatever it is, that's for me. What is it for you? What happens in the moment you feel tired? What happens in the moment that you feel despair? What happens in the moment you feel frustration? Your feelings create a filter that you view the world through. It's very important because what I'm trying to express here is to shake up your view of reality. If you really are practicing Zen, you've got to be open to the fact or the possibility that you may be wrong. And rather than defend against it, we're learning to open toward it. That moment that I discover I've misunderstood, that's a moment of not knowing. You know, last week, for those of you who were here, Zen Master Song was giving the Dharma talk. And she was talking about how she was speaking with her daughter, and they were trying to understand, why is it that people won't accept the reality of the danger of climate change? And what occurred to me, and actually she happened to ask me something right after this, so some of you heard me say it, it's my experience that that same fear is what keeps people away from practicing. When you find yourself resistant to practice, you know it's good for you to sit down in meditation in the morning before you start your day, but you just can't get yourself to do it. It's very likely that somewhere in there is a resistance to the practice of inquiring, what am I? When we go inside, we start to see things that make us uncomfortable. Our dream gets shaken. And often, though we may give lip service to wanting that because we're practitioners, the reality is it's frightening. It's destabilizing. We don't do Zen practice to make ourselves more secure in our life. We do Zen practice, we can say, you can fill in a lot of things for this, but in this, what I'm talking about, we practice to make our center strong enough that we can handle uncertainty. We're kind of trying to find a way to get more comfortable with not knowing. And as that comfort grows, we can lean in to what we don't know. We don't have to use things we know as a protection. You know, as a psychotherapist, I've heard many times people say, I present in any particular way in order to make people think something about me. I want you to think I'm intelligent. So I'm going to present as authoritative so you see me that way. And maybe if I'm lucky, I'll make you a little frightened of pushing back on what I say, because I'm such a good arguer that you're going to lose ultimately anyway. So I'm using a style to protect myself. So when Mangang simply says, very tired, so the dream is very complicated. Very scared, so the dream is very defensive. Full of longing, so my dream is very grasping. Full of sadness, so I'm craving comfort. Cause and effect. In our practice, we're looking inward. What am I? What is this? Mangang goes on to say, this morning a bird gave a Dharma speech to me. It's a beautiful line. We think we human beings give Dharma speeches. Mangang was a great Zen master with many followers. He gave Dharma speeches all the time. In Korea, they would sit up on a high rostrum. It would be full of ceremony. So we can conventionally think that it's the Dharma teacher who gives the Dharma speech. But Mangang is telling us here, that's a way too limited view. This morning, he heard a bird. That bird was his teacher. So what was your teacher today? Maybe it was the raven who called out while you were taking a walk. Maybe it was your boss who was critical. Maybe it was a friend who actually felt brushed off by you. Maybe it was somebody that you'd never met who somehow drew towards you and you had a moment of intimate connection. Each moment is our teacher. Each moment is giving a Dharma speech to us. Later on, when we ask questions about these koans, this is a koan that we use, the question says, this morning a bird gave a Dharma speech to me. What does that mean? It's not asking, what is the meaning? What is the teaching? What does this moment show you? Is your mind open, flexible, and wide enough to hear? How much resistance are the words that I'm speaking meeting? Remember, everything is created by mind alone. Each one of us individually gives meaning to the words we hear. I'm speaking, I think I have an intended meaning, but that doesn't mean that's the meaning that you take. I'm not even telling you that you should take my meaning. This is practice. Doesn't matter what the meaning is. What matters is that you recognize it. Practice is not about the teacher. Practice is about you. What am I? It's not my job to turn you into a mirror image of me. It's my job to help you open to express to the world what and who you are. That's what the practice is. That's what chanting is about. That's what sitting is about. That's what Dharma talks are about. That's what bowing practice is about. That's what mantra practice is about. That's what Zen practice is. It's a practice to open us. In a sense, crack open the egg, crack open the shell that we put around ourselves for whatever reason, to open up to the world around us, to be ready to learn from the Dharma speech that's coming right now, to be ready and to embrace being wrong, to embrace the uncertainty, to embrace the moment as intimately and as closely as we can perceive it. So then Mangang goes on, today is Tiger Year's Buddha's birthday. Very simple declarative statement. It is just this. It is this because we call it this. It's really not the day the Buddha was born. It's the day that Buddhists around the world celebrate the birth of the Buddha. But when April 8th comes, many of us think, today's Buddha's birthday. We even sing happy birthday to the Buddha when we gather as a group, as a large group in Rhode Island. But what does that mean? Remember, we're always practicing with great doubt. So even while we're singing happy birthday, there's a part of us wondering, really? What does that mean? Who's singing and who am I singing to? Question everything. This is not self-doubt. In China and Korea, they call it great doubt. Self-doubt is wondering whether I'm good enough. Great doubt is being courageous. Great doubt is being open. Great doubt is sitting in uncertainty and learning, being open, connecting with what, from a mind that doesn't know, allows us to learn. So while in my dream of this poem, Mangang woke up and he was tired and he was a little bit grumpy and he didn't really feel like going through this day, which was going to be full of ceremony, where he was having to be present and performing and sharing and expressing, and he was tired. And then the bird chirped, chirp, 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 chirp. And in that moment, he woke up. The bird is singing. Today is Tiger Year's Buddha's birthday. What's my job? Suddenly, it becomes an open ceremony. He can move from being closed to being open by allowing the bird to teach him. And then his final line is also a wonderful teaching. 100 grasses understand themselves. yellow, and red. Think of a field of wild grasses. When we say grasses in our minds, we get, at least here in America, we get these manicured green lawns. But think of the hillside. All the grasses are their own color, their own shape. 100 of them revealing themselves right now. Just as 25 people are sitting, listening to this talk, allowing this talk to open. And each one of us is revealing ourselves. Each one of us has a possibility of expressing ourselves. Each one of us is figuratively one of those pieces of grass, plants of grass, I don't even know what to call it. And we're all shimmering. We're all in a group, so it looks like we're all moving together. But if you look closely, each one is unique. And each one has something important to express. So I want to take just a couple of minutes to finish up by circling back to the question of mind and politics and belief and idea. It's my sense, this is what I've been kind of working with and grappling with over the last couple of weeks, that our societies have become, probably always were, since this is a big part of Buddhism to begin with, but we've become extremely self-centered, extremely focused on me. And our whole inner experience is oriented around that. And I think what I'm starting to feel is that we project that selfness out onto the world in such a way that we expect one person to hold all the truth. Be it a politician, a president, if you will, be it a Zen teacher, a college professor. We put people up on a pedestal and believe that they're something special. Now, of course, in some ways, each one of us are special. So if we raise each individual up, we can see their specialness. But the dream that we make is we're looking for one fixed idea to save us. But it's actually in the multitudes of expression that truth arises. So rather than looking outside to one point to find a solution, I think what we need to move towards is the wisdom of the group. Now, now you're going to hear just a little bit of my political mind, that we get so focused on who's the leader that we forget about the wisdom of the whole. And that if we can move out of our self-centered belief in our ideas and opinions and open to others, we can actually move towards a more consensual process. When I lived in the Zen Center all those 40 years ago, we would have, once a month, we would have these things we called them long house meetings. And all decisions were made by consensus. And sometimes these were brutal meetings. But there's something in the model of listening to the wisdom of everybody and finding a way to integrate that. Rather than pushing ideas away, it's an attempt to incorporate. So when that bird tweets, that bird has something important to say. There are yellow grasses, there are green grasses, there are red grasses, and all shades of the spectrum. the more we get stuck in a narrow, self-centered view, the less we're aware of the wisdom and compassion and aliveness that's all around us. So in many ways, it's my sense that we're practicing to break through the self-centered beliefs, ideas, defenses, and dream that we use to prop ourselves up, that we practice to start pulling out those props so that we can open and that we can be available to the wisdom that's around us and expressive enough of our truth that we show up in the moment and express our nature just as it is now.